recording. So the first 3 or 4 weeks or so are going to be a little bit more like we work through things together. And then we're going to start working on some projects after about week 4 or 5. I think it'll be a lot of fun. We'll be working on little things here and there. But I want to record these videos so that everybody is on the same platform. And as we go through the semester, we have some people come in from just during the semester. We can have these videos available for everybody. Again, these meetings will all be held hybrid and both in person and online. Not what I wanted to do. In true Apple fashion, I cannot apparently turn off presenter view, but that is fine. Let me exit and rejoin because for some reason some voices are glitching out. All right, Sam, can you say something? Samuel? Okay, well, it sounds a little... Okay. All good. Yeah, sometimes it gets like this really high-pitched, like squeaking, and that's like a weird glitch with Discord where I had to leave and rejoin. So it's actually good that I was able to hear that because I wouldn't be able to hear anything else. So yeah, awesome. Welcome to web development, our first meeting, fundamentals of web development, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, how many of you are familiar with 1, 2, or all 3 of these? Yes. Sorry about that. So this SIG doesn't have any expectation that you know any of this. You will learn it as it becomes. This sort of series here will help get everybody set up and get going. So, if you're not already an ACM member, it is completely free. And down the line, when we're using like some of the servers and stuff, it's going to be important that you have an ACM membership at this chapter. So if you want to go ahead and go to that URL or scan that QR code, then you'll be able to join and get access to all of that, as well as like our library and stuff. If you're not already in the Discord, which would be very surprising, you can also scan that QR code, or if you're, if you're watching this recording later and you're not in the Discord, go ahead and scan that. So, the fundamental building blocks of any website, any modern website, is built off of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, these icons are the newest sort of iteration. You have HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript. So these are like the logos. And yeah, you build all of these together to build a website. So HTML is pretty much just for data. Any like information, all of your, all of the text that's going to be on the site is going to be in HTML. All of like your blocks or sections are going to be separated in HTML. It defines the structure of your site. CSS defines the style of the site. So however things are laid out, how they're formatted, will be defined through CSS. And JavaScript is there to allow for different extended functionality. So if you don't just want crappy A-links, anchor tags, which is like the little crappy blue links that you see all over old websites. You want some fancy buttons that do things, or fancy forms that do checks, make API requests, you have to do that through JavaScript. You could do it through PHP. If you're looking for job security, that's a great way to do it, is to program PHP, because nobody else will want to do it. And I can't blame them. But we're going to be using JavaScript. So today we're going to cover the basics of HTML5 and CSS3. It's going to be a very short introduction, and you'll learn more as you need to. So the basic structure of any HTML document. You have your doctype HTML, which is basically, it's not absolutely required, but it's good to you have it at the top. Used to, when you had fancy XML and extended XML, you would have a different doctype, but this is sort of a remnant from past. It is important to have this so that everything in your website will be formatted correctly on all browsers. Next is HTML head. The HTML will enclose the entire page, the entire document. You'll have an opening tag, and then you'll have a closing tag. The closing tag is, as you can see, it's just a /HTML with the brackets. And head and body also are closed that way. There are some that are shorthand, can be closed, like the image tag, which we'll see. And then there are some special ones like the doctype, which don't have a closing tag. So these are the very basic elements. And then you have your head and your body, which go inside of the HTML. And then you have the title, which goes inside your head. And we'll look at how all that works together in just a moment. So, as I said, this is going to be interactive. So if you would like to do this along with me and ask any questions, that would be great. Otherwise, you can feel free to just watch and learn. So let me switch over to the other screen. And we have visual. We're going to be. You can use whatever HTML editor you want. VS Code just works the best, and I don't have this set up for HTML or web development at the moment, so we'll run through it, and you'll get to see how I do that. So we're going to go ahead and open a new folder. All right, we got a folder here. Now, we're going to want a couple of extensions. So we're going to go ahead and create our files. So index.html. This is, you can set it to different things, but this is the standard. If you do change it, then likely you're going to have to change it in whatever web server you're using. But it's just a good way to just have index.html. And we're going to create another folder or another file called styles.css. And that's the only two files we're going to be working with today. Now, it looks like, yeah, So I think Visual Studio Code already has some default extensions installed for HTML. Yeah, because it looks like I have a SAS extension, but that shouldn't be having any effect here. Does anybody else have this open? And if they type like open bracket and start typing this, does it autocomplete? Would anybody be able to check that? Because I don't have any extensions on, but I haven't done it in VS Code anytime recently. So maybe this is a update where everything's included now. Yeah. If somebody could let me know, that'd be great. So let's test CSS. Yeah, it looks like CSS is already there too. But I have a SAS interpreter on, so, or SAS extension, so. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure this comes default, so no need to worry about having to install any special extensions. It's already installed for you. Okay, so as I said, you start every document with this doctype HTML. Now, as I said, everything else is enclosed in these HTML tags. And then we have our head. And we have our body. Awesome. So, actually, there is a extension that I would like that it is not included. It's called Live Server. If you want to download that, Live Server, go to Extensions, Live Server. That'll make things a little bit easier. So once you have that Live Server installed, you can click Go Live. And then you'll see it will open a web page. And this is your first HTML page. Yay, super exciting. Let's add a little bit of content here. So you can type whatever you want in here. And then if you save it, it's going to automatically reload it on the website. So if you have like an external monitor, this is super nice. If you don't, it kind of sucks. Or if you have a better monitor. But yeah, so you can type in all of your text here, and then, yeah. So there's one last thing, was title. Okay. So title is a special one. It goes in the head, and it tells the title of the site. So, hello world. We're going to name our site. Now, if you go to, is it, let's open a new tab. There we go. Yeah, so here's the title, hello world. If you're using a different browser like Chrome, it'll show up that way as well. So yeah, you'll see that we have a title now. That's the title of our page. All right. So, now that we have that, we can start defining some of the other HTML elements that make up the HTML document. We have, just going to run through these, header, main, section, article, nav, div, and span. So div and span are defined special code blocks that are block and inline. Now we will go over that in a minute whenever we get to CSS. We'll get to see exactly how that works, but it's important that you have that you know when to use div and span for different things. Nav, article, and section are there purely for organizational purposes. They have no effect on the document, but they're referenced whenever you use CSS. So if you have like a section with a bunch of articles and you want to refer to all articles that are in this section, in a specific section, then you can do that. Main is the sort of the main body of the page. So sometimes you'll have a header, you'll have a footer, you may have like a sidebar, but then you'll have the main content, and that'll be all wrapped in main. And again, you have the header, and there's also a footer tag that's not on here that also will allow you to have a footer. So, now let's look at the elements that actually do have an effect on how it looks on the page. These have a default style that is applied to them, but you can also go and change those at any time you want to. First, the most common is the H1 to H6. As you can see in the picture, an H1 is the largest heading, and then H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. And these all sort of define like how it looks. As you can see, it gets bigger, it gets less bold, and then at the bottom it gets a little bit more italicized, and the font weight is a little bit lighter. The P tags will be, they don't necessarily have a significant effect on the page itself. It's, again, going back to block and inline, which you'll learn about in a minute. It's a block tag, so you want to make sure that if you use it, that if it's, you understand it's a block tag, so it may interfere with some stuff. UL is an unordered list, OL is an ordered list, and UL and OL consist of several LI. So unordered list, ordered list, and list item, so that's pretty straightforward. And then the other common one is A tags or anchor tags. These are for links, not from Zelda. These are links to go to other pages, whether it be on your site or to another site, like maybe a Zelda forum. Okay, so let's get back to writing some code. So we have our fancy website here with absolutely nothing in it. We have what the best of 1985 had to offer. 84, I think. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit more interesting. So we have our main here. We'll go ahead and have our main. We'll have a header. And this header will have a H1 tag with my first site. Yay. Now we want to go ahead and let's look at the main content here. Let's actually make our footer first. We'll get back to the main content. And so on the footer, let's have an A tag. And an A tag you're going to put in here is an href. And this is where it refers to. So if you're going to go to like an external website, for example, you're going to put whatever link is in here inside the A tag. If you want to put a link to Google, you can do it like this. Otherwise, you can also do, say you had another file in here, like index2.html, and you wanted to refer to that, then you would just type index2.html or /index2.html, or you could use absolute link, but that's bad practice. We'll get into, whenever we get into whenever we get into frameworks and libraries and stuff, we'll look at absolute versus relative links and when they should and shouldn't be used. But yes, so we have our footer here, which will have a link to Google, just in case you need to promote Google, because they need it apparently. So let's have a paragraph here. Things that are great about my site. And then we'll have an unordered list with some list items. Absolutely. All right, let's add another one. Nothing. We'll make it great, but right now it's not great. Now, I felt it best to rank them for some reason. Let's go ahead and make an ordered list out of these. Now we're going to do an order list, and for some reason, well, nothing comes before absolutely, so I feel like nothing should always come first. So we're going to save this, and you'll see our great site here. Awesome. So we got our header here, and we have our paragraph here with absolutely nothing, and then we have our words ranked. Nothing. Then we have a link to Google. Cannot get it. Oh, that is my bad. I failed you all. If you put HTTP or HTTPS first, you need to put that because that tells it that you're going outside of the site. If you don't put anything here, it assumes you're just going to a local file. Let's save that. Let's go to Google again. There we go. Now we're at Google. Which, honestly, if you just look at our site, Google has some work to do. They should hire me. Yeah. Awesome. So this looks pretty hideous. Let's learn a way to make it slightly, marginally less hideous. Let's learn a little bit of CSS. So, CSS is a way for styling elements, organizing them in different ways, and defining sort of the layout of different elements. It's very powerful. It's very important to understand, but it's sort of just like HTML. You do not need to know everything, and most autocomplete will be great for pretty much everything. There are some CSS tricks that you'll learn along the way. We have one today that I'll show you, but they're just cool little things you'll learn because CSS is a very weird language. There's a lot of hacks to get things done, so that you don't have to do them in JavaScript, but it's very powerful, even though it seems very simple. So every element can be defined. You can either call it with its element name, so you can call it with like section or body or header, you can, or footer, you can call it by those names, or you can give them each an individual name, or an ID or a class. Now, ID and class are functionally the same. How you reference them is slightly different, but functionally they are the exact same. But generally, if you're going to define one element that you want to change and you want to access that in CSS, you want to use an ID. But if you want to change a bunch of elements at the same time, you would use a class. I personally generally just revert to classes. They, first off, it's much easier to hit period than it is to hit hash, in my personal opinion. And second is, if you decide to style other things the same way, you don't have to go and change your IDs to classes. So yeah, I pretty much always use classes, but if you only have one element, you know it's that one element, and you really feel like using an ID, you can do that. So, inline versus block, the thing I've been telling you about this whole time. Inline is, so if you have an element, and if you noticed on our website, you noticed how we didn't tell this to go to the next line. We didn't tell paragraph to go to the next line. We didn't tell these list items to go to the next line. They just automatically did that. Now, that's because things like paragraph, things like header, H1, H2, things like unordered list and list items, anchor tags are not actually a block, so if I put something around it, like a link to Google, you'll see that it doesn't go onto a separate line. That's because certain elements are automatically blocks, and some of them are inline. So an A, the link, the A tag or anchor tag is an inline element. That means whenever you write it, assuming it's not by a block element, it will automatically go beside that element. Whereas P, H1, UL, OL, IL, or LI, they're all block elements. Now, the power of CSS, you can always change whether they're block or inline, and we'll look at that. Now, some other things, you can give all of your fonts and stuff. You can change all the fonts, set them to different things, make everything bold, make everything colorful. You can add image. This is how you would tell it to add an image to a website. You can make it look like the best of what a late 2000s used car dealership site looks like, pretty easily in CSS with nothing but CSS and HTML. So yeah, if anybody wants to build one of those, I'd love to see it. It'd be hilarious. We can even host it for you. As long as you're not actually selling used cars, that might be a conflict of interest. Now, opposed to HTML, you saw that we had sort of an opening and a closing tag. Well, that's not. CSS ends with semicolons, but they're wrapped in. They're sort of wrapped in braces followed by the tag. It's kind of hard to explain. We'll show you in just a second. And now you will need to tell the HTML that you are going to be using a style sheet. So I'm going to show you how we add that in here. So we're going to go ahead and add our link. And rel equals style sheet. And href. Now there are a couple other links. We'll look at them later. But this is the way you would add a style sheet. There we go. Now that we've added a style sheet, if we go into our styles here and we say H1 color colon red semicolon. And you see now my first site is red. So now all H1s will be red. Now, awesome. Time to practice. If you're following along, it's awesome. You'll get plenty of experience of building. It's even if you're like typing directly after me, like you'll get experience doing this, and that's awesome. So now we covered. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right screen, which we are. I seem to have lost my mouse cursor. There we go. Okay, so we've added our link. Now let's do a little bit of styling. So say I want only this paragraph to be bold. All right, let's add a class here. Class equals bold me. All right. If you want to add multiple classes, that's the other thing. An ID, you can only have one ID. But a class, you can have as many classes as you want. You can also say italicize me. I think that's how you spell italicize me. But I only want this one to be italicized. We'll make this one italicized, so it's almost like a question. Gotta let your readers know that they should be having an existential crisis at this point. Awesome. So that's not going to do anything because we haven't done anything to it. So let's go ahead and look at our. So we're going to have you refer to it by a dot bold me. And we're going to set the font weight to bold. And now you see that one's bold. You can also set it to bolder. It just is more bold. So, yep, boring. Maybe not as bold as Boulder, Colorado, but yeah, it's bold. Personally, I can't tell much of the difference. You can manually set these weights too. I think you set like 900 or something like that. And now it's like super bold, like 300. Now it's like less bold. So, yeah. There's plenty of different ways to set that. And then we had italicize me. And the font weight for that. We want it to be sorry, I believe it's font style italic. There we go. Fancy. The first one doesn't seem to be italicized. I spell it wrong. There we go. Yeah, I spelled it wrong. So yeah, now that one is italicized. Yeah, so let's look at bold and inline. So let's say that we wanted all of our list items to be one right after another. Why would you want to do that? I don't know, but let's just say you wanted to do it that way. Actually, there is a reason that you would want to do that, and we'll look at that in a second. Let's go ahead and set all LI. We're going to set display to be inline. And now you see that these are showing up right after each other, because now they're inline. And block, and there's inline block, which is like a special version. another nice little thing, if you set the font, or I believe it's like decoration, text decoration, none, no. I don't remember exactly the one, but removing these little boxes here from the site. I have to look it up, it's been a minute. The other cool thing is, say we want to center this on the site. This is the little hack I told you about. Let's center the header here. We do margin 0 auto. It's a little hack. Is it auto 0? It should be centered. Okay. Okay, well, it doesn't seem to want to. I'll have to get back to you on that. But there is a way to center text in CSS. I think there is some more modern ways. Okay, there is a text-align center now, which you can use. Maybe they removed that? Yeah, maybe that's an update or something, because there was no text-align, and text-align didn't work this way. You would have to do just like this. Let's see if this works. Now, this does not work for everything, so you will want to make sure. Hello. Welcome. This doesn't. Yeah, there's got to be something going on with this. So text-align doesn't always work on block elements specifically. It can have some issues, so you do want to be careful with that. You can switch between the automatic margin and the text-align to see if one of them gets your result. So, awesome. That describes pretty much everything there. There are some more fancy ones. Like if we want to do class equals sign blind me. We can do, you'll see this just floats it over to the right. Generally you would have, if you wanted to have like a sidebar or something, you would put like a div over here.
I can't see your screen without. I'm still on that page.
Oh, do you want to come over here? Sorry, usually in the future I'll have it on there, but yeah. So yeah, you see that there now on the side here you have your sort of floating sidebar, and that's how you would get your sidebars in the old days. Nowadays they use Flexbox, which we'll get into, but this is a perfectly viable way to do it, and perfectly modern way of doing it. So yeah, we have things on the side now, and you can go through the list of CSS styles, and there's so many of them, I could not cover all of them in a week. There's so many of them. But you'll learn the most important ones And yeah. So let's go ahead and get back to the presentation. So, practice. Now I do want to quickly, before we get finished here, I do want to quickly go over comments and formatting and some SEO stuff. So HTML comments start with open bracket, exclamation point dash dash, and with dash dash closing. And then CSS comments / star and then star slash, pretty straightforward. Now I do want to say that HTML is non-white space sensitive, or not white space sensitive, which means that if you, let's switch over real quick so you can see it. If I go in here and I just add a bunch of spaces, to beginning and after this, and I save it, you'll notice that literally nothing changed. It's not because it's broken. You'll see nothing has moved over here. You see that's like all the space that we just put there is completely gone. What happened to it? Well, it's not white space sensitive. Now there are a special tag in HTML where you can, where it does, it becomes sensitive to white space, but you do not use that generally. Very specific use cases. Generally, it will break most browsers, especially if you're using things like tables and stuff. It's going to completely break it. And if you want your site to be responsive in any way, do not use it. There are plenty of other ways around it. If you want to add, if you have any questions or something about how you would go about it, just ask somebody. I'm sure there's always a way around something. Everything uses tabs. No 4 space, no 2 space. Just use a tab. It doesn't really matter. You could put everything on the same exact line and not have any formatting edit whatsoever. But for the sake of the people who are reading your code, please tab. Awesome. Let's look at some SEO stuff. It's not super important that you memorize all this. Just make sure that you put these into all of your sites. So we're going to switch over, and I'll run through where you add them. So body here, or the HTML up here. So this tells this what SEO is. Let me explain what SEO and metadata is. So SEO stands for search engine optimization. So search engines will optimize sites that have certain elements to them. If your site doesn't have any description, no keywords, its robots doesn't exist, it doesn't have an icon, your site's not going to be anywhere near the top. It'll probably be in the Google graveyard, which is the second page or farther behind. And you do not want your website to be there because nobody will go there. So you add your language here. Awesome. And the rest of these will go up here in the top. So meta char set equals UTF-8. This just defines the ASCII character set that it's using, which is UTF-8. Meta name equals description. Content equals my super duper fancy website. Awesome. Anybody who uses super duper to describe anything, it's not super duper. But keywords, content equals fancy. And of course, super duper. It's all separated by commas. First site, I don't know. And these are keywords that Google will use to index your site. Or if you use another search engine, this will be the way that it indexes your site. But I assume you're all reasonable human beings, and you either use Google or DuckDuckGo. Robots. If you're familiar with like the robots.txt or robots file, this basically just tells which parts of your site can be indexed. Index and follow tells it that it can index any part of the site, and you don't care, which is for the most part going to be the case. Now, if you have like a login area, like where you log into the site, generally you do not want to index the login area or the actual behind the login, so you'll want to make sure that those are excluded. Now there is the base href. I don't know if this is going to break something, but we'll try it anyway. Localhost, I believe it's on 5500. If you look at the bottom here, there's a port. Index.html. This will be the base. And you want to make sure you have this because if, for example, whenever you click on a link, as we were looking at before, this is important because it tells it how to reference the file. It tells it where the base of where the base of your site is. It's at localhost 5500. And last but not least, well, two things. Make sure that this is above any link. So this link right here, make sure base is before any links that you add. The other link we will do, the last one is rel equals icon. And it'll pretty much always be called favicon.ico. Now I do not have one, so it's not going to work, but you will generally have like a favicon, and this is where you will tell it to be. Awesome. So now your website is up to standards of the 21st century, even though it doesn't look like it. That will get your that'll make sure that Google doesn't just completely ignore your site. Yeah, so if you want to feel ignored, just leave this out, otherwise put it in. Awesome. So you've survived until 7:02. Sorry, I went a couple minutes over. We're going to have a whole bunch of fun different topics coming in the future. Next couple things we're going to be covering is basic JavaScript, HTML forms, more advanced CSS styling, Bootstrap, which is basically a library for CSS. We'll be looking at Sass and SCSS, which is basically there to make writing CSS easier. And then 2-3 weeks down the line, we'll be looking at frameworks and libraries, such as Angular, Vue, and React, deciding on one and doing our first project. So, let's see how many of you actually survived until the very end. 2, 3 people. Thank you. You survived. If you do any of you have any questions?
Not really. I've done the basics before, but
Yeah.
you know,
I mean,
like
I
not
figured.
something.
Yeah, I mean, I figure a lot of this stuff will be sort of done already, but
Yeah.
it's important to get out of the way
Yeah.
because all of these are going to be recorded, and in the future, when people sort of come in, we could just say, "Hey, we want you to have a baseline knowledge. Here you go, watch these videos, and you'll be up to speed."
Yeah.
Everything else will be just building on top of that, and so yeah. Does anybody don't have any questions on Discord? I'm approximately at 3% battery life, so if you have any questions, please ask them now.
Oh, that's just a USB hub. Sorry, I was like, what? You plugged into something.
Yeah, I had to run. That's why I was late, because I had to run home really quickly and grab this hub because I forgot I didn't have HDMI. I was gonna do it in there, but decided to come in here.
Living that Apple lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my friend has a Surface,
Yeah.
and like I thought that the Apple port selection was bad. She has like she has a mini display port.
Yeah, mini display.
It's like USB-C hubs to HDMI are much more commonplace than mini
Yeah.
display port. I'd rather have two USB-Cs than one USB Type A and
Yeah.
a mini display port.
I don't have.
But yeah, no, I'm not saying that the port selection is good, but it's
No.
certainly not bad.
I
Hopefully the next generation's supposed to have
well,
more ports.
I think the next generation's gonna maybe have an SD card slot. I think that's literally what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Probably not though. But
Welcome, Dan.
I don't mind it. I just.
Dan the man. Hey, when are you gonna come by the ACM office? Haven't seen you in a while. Oh, really? Are you actually coming here?
This is hilarious.
Well, my laptop's gonna die, but yeah, it's great seeing you all, and I hope to see you next week. So yeah, so feel free to PM me any questions.